Okay. Hi, my name is Crystal Jordan, and I'm with Rolling Out. And I'm really excited because this is a cover conversation. So we get a chance to actually celebrate you with a cover. So welcome to Rolling Out.
Great. It was a great photo shoot, by the way. I had a lot of fun.
Good. That's awesome. That's what we like to hear. And it was so fast. I know it was really quick, but we got a great picture. I think you're gonna be happy with it. So
Oh,
thank
great. No, it was they were good. I was just a canvas. And I went by their direction, and they were easy to work with. I understood exactly what they wanted. They communicated well, and we had a good time. It was too short. We could have done it all day.
I wish we had been able to have more time, but there'll be more times. But I'm excited that we get a chance to celebrate Phat Tuesdays and yourself, because I kind of think of you as, if building your own, creating and building your own table were a person before that was a thing, because this is basically the result of you years ago, decades ago, creating and building something for the Black community, the Black comedic community that I don't think, obviously we're getting a chance to give you your roses now, but that was something that, we look at now, like, well, let's just create our own spaces. But you did that years ago, back in 1995 with Phat Tuesday. So first of all, congratulations and kudos. And it feels good to give you those roses now.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And like I said back then, I mean, it purely was out of wanting to give back, wanting to showcase other comedians, and I wanted a place to work out on a regular basis. When I came to Los Angeles, and people would ask you, particularly white people would ask me, "Oh, you're a comedian. When can I see you at the Comedy Store, Laugh Factory, or the Improv?" And I couldn't tell them because I wasn't a regular in there. I didn't know. I didn't have that privilege. So I hated how that felt, because they made you feel like you weren't a real comedian unless you're at one of those big places on Sunset. And I was like, I don't like this feeling. So when I had the opportunity to change that, not only for myself, but for other comedians, so they can say, you know what, come see me on Tuesday night. I got a spot. And it became that night where they could tell their agents or potential agents or managers or potential directors or writers that, hey, I got a spot on Tuesday night in the main room. It started in the belly room, but then to say that it was going on in the main room, it meant something to them. And I didn't really realize that until I started researching for the documentary, and that really revealed how important it was to them. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. You felt that way about it.
Well, that's interesting, because as a obviously a lover of comedy, I think everybody is. Comedy is something that helps us deal with our own lives, with tragedies and everything. I don't think we realize how important it is for comedians to be able to get that work in and work out their sets and have something consistent. So can you talk a little, because we just see it when it's, it's the big special, and it's all the kinks are worked out, and, or the big movie comes out. We don't see, unless you live in those areas and go to those places, you don't see the work that goes into creating the special that hits big. So can you talk about how important it is to kind of get that work in, get that exercise in before you get those big breaks where the rest of the world is like, oh, he's overnight success,
Wow. And that's so true. Comedy clubs are the gym. That's where we work our material out. Like, you go to the gym, you working out, you're getting the weight off, you're getting the muscles up. In comedy, that's the gym. You're getting those reps in. You're taking that idea, that premise, and you're molding it, and you're sculpting it, and you're making sure it becomes that bit that you see on HBO or on one of these other platforms. But now, fortunately, we have Amazon Prime Video that we can showcase our stuff on. So now more outlets are out there for us to showcase, our material. But the comic clubs are very important, because that's where you bomb. That's where you retool. And nights like Phat Tuesdays was important because it's cool to do comedy in the hood. Some neighborhoods aren't the best neighborhoods.
Right.
And you have gangbangers coming to your neighborhood, and they will heckle you. And you have a decision in a split second to either go back at them and shut them down, or losing your life or getting beat up in the parking lot after the show when you did shut them down. And that's a hard balance, because your comedy ego is like, destroy. That's what our muscle is trained to do. But then your ass is like, hey man, he gonna fuck you up when you get outside. And it's hard. That's a hard dynamic.
Yeah.
And it has happened several times. But a place like the Comedy Store and Phat Tuesdays being there gave you a safe place to go where you didn't have to really worry about that. Gangbanging still came.
Yeah.
But they were more reluctant to start anything on that side of Wilshire in Hollywood because the police was already outside, because I was a bunch of Negroes anyway inside. So the police was already outside waiting on us to leave anyway. In the hood, they may not come until it's too late. So a night like Phat Tuesdays was important to comedians just as well as important to the patrons who came to see the show.
Wow, that's a different dynamic that I thought about. I have had quite a few interviews with comedians, and that kind of brings me to a point I wanted to ask you about. There's a definite distinct difference between the Black experience and the other experience, every other experience. So when we think about comedy, a lot of times we really feel like, you know, there's comedy that's for us, and then there's comedy that crosses over. And what's interesting about the comedians, I mean, you have a litany of icons that came through Phat Tuesday, and many of those were able to kind of cross over and be able to relate to both audiences. But I know that's not an easy thing to do. You've been able to do it. Obviously, your brother's been able to do it. And like I said, so many other people, Dave Chappelle, obviously, so many people Chris Rock is a great example of that. What do you think is that balance or that magic that allows you to still connect with the Black experience? Because it's like you said, I mean, no one, you know, some comedians don't have to worry about possibly getting shot after leaving the club, but also connects to a very commercial audience. But then the Black community can still relate and say that's still part of who we are. What is that balance?
Well, first of all, funny is funny, regardless. And comedy is subjective.
Yeah.
So there's some people who are going to love you, some people who are not going to love you. And it's okay. They're not haters. They just don't like your brand of comedy, period. I work on not having a Black set and a white set.
Okay.
I work on being funny. I work on telling my story. And prayerfully, my story is funny enough in any audience. Now, the energy in both audiences are completely different. And I say it in the documentary. White people come to laugh, Black people come not to laugh. You know, a Black person would be like, you know, white person would be like, hey, have a good show, break a leg. But a brother would be like, you better be funny, mother. And that's a lot of pressure. It's like before you go on stage. Yeah. So I think the comedians who just focus on the funny, I think those are the comedians who are able to cross over and do both. And I hate the word crossover, but the ones who attract a diverse audience, should we say. And I think it's just, there's different energy now. There's rooms in cities where predominantly Black, where you got to go in there and you got to just whip it out and start hitting it. I'm just going to be honest. It's like, there's no foreplay, there's no kissing, there's no flowers, there's no dinner before. You got to go, and they want to hit a top 10. They want to hit the hits. We don't want B-sides. We don't want interludes, how you created this song. We want the hits. We want them top 10 hits we heard on the radio. Yeah. We want that if you relate it to music, because they don't want to hear it if they saw it on TV already. Yeah. And so, and then certain audiences allow you to make love to them, to take your time and work it out. And they're both great. There's time to be a comic and there's time to be a comedian. A comic says funny things, a comedian make things funny. Sometimes when you have shows like Def Comedy Jam and BET Comic View, that's your single. Yeah. That's your hot single. When your new artist coming out, you got your single. Hey, this is my style. This is what I do. Here's this single. When you do a special and you headline the comedy clubs, that's your album. Yeah. Now you see, you got the story from start to finish. And comedy clubs are good for that reason. Black comedy clubs are good for that reason because it's going to keep you sharp. Black comedy clubs they won't give them last easy at all. So it makes you ready. Roseanne Barr went and did the Apollo Theater years ago because she said Black audiences are honest. And they're going to come out and they're going to let you know if you're funny or not. Bob Saget, was fearless. He came and did Phat Tuesdays. This guy from Full House, but he wanted to do the room. He wanted to see, like, man, am I funny to everyone, not just this white audience that I'm used to playing to? Can I go to an all-Black room? And a lot of us comedians, Black comedians, we do the same to white audiences. Can we go play a more diverse audience? But at the end of the day, to our core, we just want to tell our story and have everybody laugh, because at the end of the day, only color we see is green. Because when they come and put them asses in them seats, that's more green. And we don't do it for that, but it's satisfying to see that your comedy can reach everybody.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about when it started, because 1995, very different cultural landscape. I mean, the Rodney King verdict, definitely a darkness, and kind of like I think we kind of went through that again recently, where the country didn't realize how separated and polarized we were until we saw those images, and we saw people on both sides. You know, Black people were mad, white people were mad, everyone is feeling disconnected. And here we are again, you know, especially over the last couple of years, feeling that way. Can you talk a little bit about how things were very different when you started? Because I mean, you talk about you being a part of Def Comedy Jam and BT Comedy View, like that was early on, very, very different. We didn't really there weren't the same, you didn't have to be as PC. Comedians could say whatever they wanted. And now we see people being canceled. It's just very different. So can you talk about how the landscape was different in 1995 when you started compared to now when we're celebrating that history?
Well, I mean, the landscape has changed a bit, and those who want to change and adapt and be worried about that, by all means do it. Yeah. Nobody's going to tell me how to tell my story. Yeah. You may not agree with my story. You may not like how I tell my story, but I'm going to tell my goddamn story the way I want to tell my story. And if it's something that offends you, there's no ill intent behind it. That's just the way I tell my story. That's my point of view. That's how I see it. And you're not going to tell me how I see my story. Right. I'm the God of my story. I'm the God of my set on stage. I created it. I'd be damned if you tell me how to create my set. Right. And it bothers me because it's like, I think the intent is getting lost. There's one thing to go out and say something the way you say it. And a lot of times the jokes there's no intent, there's no malice intent. Right. It's just how we see the story, how we tell it our way, and how we were raised. And it's not about making someone feel bad. We're not intentionally doing that. It's just how we are. And you're not going to tell me, no, I'm going to tell it. And if you rock with me, if you really rock with me, then you still rock with me, even if they say I slipped up or I said something wrong, I said something, you know, that was kind of vulgar or disrespectful. Hey, I'm not perfect. And I have flaws. But to take someone's career who grinded, you know, so many years perfecting a career period in entertainment, and all the vehicles you did coming up, giving back charity-wise, all that's just erased because of a misstep. I think that's wrong. You know, in my humble opinion, I think it's wrong. So the way comedy is now, I think we're getting back to, you know, maybe people not being PC. You know, and back then, of course, we probably just didn't know any better. Yeah. We know better now. So with that being said, if you didn't know any better back then, and you know better now, then find a way to have a little bit more empathy. Yeah. If that's what you want to do. If you choose to do that, you don't have to do it, but if you choose to do it, then do it. And do it that way. But comedy now is still beautiful. It's still, it's people still need to come out and laugh, especially after what we just been through in politics and social injustice and everything. So we need to laugh more than anything. Yeah. It's funny because during COVID, especially when we're still in COVID, I don't know when COVID is going to end, but when it first started, I was like, I'm not going anywhere. You know, when things opened back up, it was very, very slow to go out. But when a comedian came that I wanted to see, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the COVID test, because you need that. You need that relief. Do you get that feedback from people that sometimes that is very healing for people when they're going through stressful times, hardship, anxiety? Like what you all do is extremely important to just us being able to heal as a country. Mental health. Absolutely. To mental health. Mm-hmm. And that's what comedy is. It's laughter purifies the air. And we need to laugh. And I say this a lot, we as Black people need to laugh the most. Mm-hmm. And because the way we're raised to be hard and be strong and not show emotion, especially Black men, to not show emotions and don't cry and all that stuff and be hard, be macho and all that, I think it comes out in laughter at a comedy show. Mm-hmm. Because we are so physical when we laugh. Ah! Oh my God, getting up, running around. I mean, because those are the same emotions that you may have would have used to cry. Yeah. Emotions are emotions. And I hate when people say women are more emotional than men. That's not true. We're just as emotional. It's just, in my opinion, women are wired to express their emotions. We're wired to suppress them. Mm-hmm. We're just as emotional as women. It's just we're not taught to show them. Right. So we use it. We express them in other ways. At sporting events, when either our team scores a touchdown or they lose the game on a last-minute kick, or whether we have a comedy show where we laugh and we get up and we got to run around the damn room. Mm-hmm. Those are emotions. Mm-hmm. So we as Black people need to laugh. And like I say, we've been through the most, so we laugh the hardest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this documentary. Like I said, it's amazing to see something that you created, that happened, that ran for 10 years, and now we're being able to go back and celebrate it with this docuseries on Amazon, and it includes some of the greats from the past and the greats right now. How did this project start? Where did this idea to bring this to Amazon come from?
The seed was planted by Michael Blackson, actually. We were on a flight one day, and it was after I had done Phat Tuesdays. I was, on the flight, and he was saying, "Hey man, I miss Phat Tuesdays." He said, these young comics have no idea what it meant to us. And he said, man, they need to know that story. And he didn't say do a documentary or anything. He said, we're just talking and jest. And the seed was planted, and I was like, never thought about that. So I went back to see how much material I had, on Phat Tuesdays, maybe on VHS or DVD or audio cassettes. I used to record, shows on audio cassettes, and how many pictures I had. We had tons of photographers come down and capture the moment. And I had, a substantial amount of stuff. I'm like, okay. Started piecing stuff together. There's a friend of mine who was a young up-and-coming filmmaker named Bishop Moore, who was good with the camera. I said, hey man, I want to put a sizzle together, which is a presentation, for those who don't know, to showcase, to try to sell this documentary, sell this story. And we would do interviews and stuff. And I was doing all the editing and splicing in, this or that with this and this picture and that interview. And as the comedians started telling their stories, not only just comedians, fans of the night and musicians and writers and producers, directors and professional athletes, they all just start telling their stories about what happened at Phat Tuesday, their story, their experience. I was like, wow, I was too busy hosting the show, producing it and running around in the back to know what was going on in the audience or outside in the parking lot or on the sidewalk. And when I started hearing all these stories, like, really? Damn, okay. I got this job because I was at Phat Tuesdays. I met so-and-so at Phat Tuesdays. Working at Phat Tuesdays, I made enough money to buy my first house. I mean, it was so many other branches of it. It just became an amazing story. So I'm underground with it for years. Years ago, I called Reggie Hudlin and was like, hey, he was on the set of Django Unchained. I say, man, I got this story about Phat Tuesdays. Oh, I remember Phat Tuesdays, and we talked for a while. And then, I got busy and put it on the back burner, start working on it again. I pick it up every couple of months and work on here, work on that. And then I finally got to the point where I took it to my agency, and Innovative Artists, Tamara Gowans and Babette Perry. They saw it and was like, wow, you have something here. And so then we start taking meetings. And I ended up having a meeting with Joy McMahon and Tom Russo, who's over at GramNet, which is Kelsey Grammer's company. And they were looking for a friend of mine, Tiana Brown, was like, hey, they're looking for urban projects. So she introduced me to those guys. They loved the story. Then we took it out. We got Original Productions involved, which is Jeff Hasler, who they do great, amazing things over there. And they were like, hey, we want to take a crack at this. We think we can help tell this story. And then we start taking it out to all the outlets, all the networks, and all the streaming services. And Amazon, I felt, was the best place for it because they were the only ones who said, is it just a documentary or do you have other stuff associated with this brand. And I created like 5 other projects associated with it, because when I first started Phat Tuesdays, everybody told me, oh, they don't make money. Oh, it's a passion project. Oh, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to pick it up. But I said, okay. I listened to them. And it didn't stop me. It made me create other projects along with it. So when I came with the whole package. Like, okay, but the first part has to happen. The documentary is the anchor. It has to be the hub, and everything else comes from that. And you know, GramNet saw that, Amazon saw that, and then it was time for a director, and they wanted all these other directors, and I wanted Regina King because she's like my sister to direct it, because I wanted a woman, and she wanted to do it because she used to come to Phat Tuesdays all the time, but she was busy. She had another project, and we'd had to wait, and Amazon just really didn't want to wait. And I have another big name director in mind who I love his work. I just didn't think he was right for this particular project. And I said, well, let me give Reggie Hudson a call. And they were like, what? Reggie, you just gonna pick up the phone and call Reggie Hudson? Like, yeah, I know a few people. And I called Reggie. I said, hey, man, remember that project Phat Tuesday I was telling you about? I said, yeah. I said, man, it's happening. We got GramNet involved. We got Original Productions involved. We got Amazon involved. And he was like, well, you know, kind of busy this weekend, executive producing the Emmys. And I was like, that little show. Okay. He said, I'll call you next week when it's over. You know, and you hear that a million times in this damn business.
Right.
Reggie coming back the next week, only like 4 days later. And we were talking about the project. Well, I sent him the materials, and he just, with a text, he said, we got to do this. I screenshot it. I sent it to GramNet. I sent it to, you know, the other powers that be, Original Productions. And we were like, yo, and went back to Amazon and said, hey, Reggie Hudlin's interested. Nice. And man, everybody just, I mean, all hands on deck. And it came together to be such a great experience working with the whole team, the entire team, from Amazon to Fremantle to Original Productions to GramNet to Reggie, and just everybody who came together to put hands on this and lay eyes on this. It was like, we all loved this project, and it was genuine love. It wasn't fake love. It was genuine love. And I appreciate everybody. Everybody put their heart into it.
So the end result, well, first of all, we are excited as a Black publication to be able to celebrate this. This means a lot to us to be able to be a part of the promotion for it. You know, not that color isn't important, but sometimes we're able to celebrate our own, especially your journey going from writing and being a part of some staple huge shows, Martin, Moesha, you know, so many shows back there, executive producing this project for yourself. Huge, that's huge growth. And I think people need to hear those stories. Cause like I said, we love to say someone's an overnight success, but when I was going through your bio, it's like, I've seen your face, but to know all the work that you put in behind the scenes just shows a commitment to your field, and that is being, you know, rewarded now. So we're happy to be able to celebrate, be a part of this rollout. But what is something that when you saw the final edit, or, you know, or looking at it, were you surprised? Is it what you envisioned, or what was your feelings looking at that and watching the entire thing, you know, come together after all the work you put in to get to this point?
I haven't seen the final edit.
Are you serious?
I want to experience what everybody else experienced. I've seen so many different versions of it. Yeah. You know, because you go through edit after edit after edit, and it all starts running together. You don't know what stayed, what got cut out, whatever, and what was approved, what was in the budget to pay for, as far as like clearances and things like that. You don't know. And then to have a great musician like Marcus Miller score it is crazy, because I was selling records and CDs in St. Louis before I moved to LA. And I was a big fan of jazz, a big fan of Marcus Miller, seeing his name as executive producer on all these albums. And then when Reggie said one day, oh, we got Marcus Miller to score it, I was like, wait a minute, what? That Marcus Miller?
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
For God to use me to create something that people appreciate.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with God because he keeps blessing me. I keep fucking up. And he still blesses me. And sometimes I still treat God like he ain't got receipts. Like he had pulled me through so much stuff. And still, it humbles me that this project is where it is. And when I read the article, the first one that was released by Deadline, I cried. And I grabbed my Bible and laid on the bed and started thinking. I started thinking about Phat Tuesdays itself without the doc, everything I went through, fighting agents and managers saying, I'm not focused on my own career, I'm helping too many people out. And I ignored it. All the prayers my mom prayed over the years for this. Even doing the documentary, it was hurdles and doors closed. I'm calling mom, like, Mom, light a candle, say a prayer. This may not happen. She said a prayer. The door's open. So to see it, to where it is right now is amazing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate everyone who believed in it. From the comedians to the directors to the producers, Amazon, the people at Amazon and Scripted, to Original Productions who saved it. At one point, this thing couldn't have happened. And Gramnet, Joy McMahon, and Tom Russo, and Jeff Hasler, and those guys, they believed in it. It was in the trash at one point. And they took it out the trash and believed in it. For Reggie Hudlin to say, man, we got to do this.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And you're still taking it all in. That's a beautiful thing. And it's like you planted so many seeds for so many years. And I think you're going to get a chance to see a lot of them blossom with this, and even more to come. So I thank you for
I think God plants those seeds. He just had me water them. I was just a gardener. And we're put on this earth to serve and to be vessels.
Yeah.
And to pay it forward and to be selfless. And when you are disciplined and obedient, things happen.
Yeah.
Doors will open. And God will continue to show you his receipts.
I'm going to ask you one last question. Because you said, during the time you were busy, producing it, but working it. What is your personal favorite memory when you think of Phat Tuesdays? What is, from your own personal experience?
It's so many. And another one just popped in my head as you asked the question, because some of them were, Richard Pryor coming to the show, Eddie Murphy coming to the show, Chris Rock asking me to go on. But I guess the memory would be never ending because of all these other comedians who went out and started their own night to help other Black comedians showcase their talent.
Yeah.
And to be a small part of that and inspiring others to give back. That's a memory that won't stop because, you know, when I go across the country and play these improv chains and these funny bone chains and these other mainstream chains, they have an urban night. And Black comedians have a night to showcase their talent in an A room. And shout out to all the bars and comedy nights that are in these one-nighter places at our comedy clubs, because we need those too. Yes, Lord, we need those. But for these mainstream clubs to open the doors to comedians, Black comedians in that city to showcase their talent, I'm just glad that people are paying it forward, and they're really doing what the spirit of giving back is. But you know, having Richard Pryor come to your comedy show, who is like, wow, is like, you even know about it? Are you kidding me? You know, having Eddie Murphy. I mean, these are comedians who are on our comedy Mount Rushmores, and to go and perform in front of them, you know, is amazing. And you know, I'm a Laker fan because of Magic Johnson. Watching him in St. Louis, you know, I was a Laker fan then, and then moving to LA and have him coming to your comedy show saying, "Man, I'm a fan." Like, what? And then to have him collaborate with you to put his comedy show together.
Wow.
So, you know, Shaq, who was coming every week, and then got inspired to go start the Shaq All-Star Comedy Series. He did the roast, and then he did that. So it's just, I'm happy to see that people are doing what they're supposed to do, is paying it forward and giving other people opportunities to showcase the art, the gift that God gave them.
I do have to ask one more question, just because, and what you just said made me think about this, because I saw that, you know, obviously there were lesser opportunities for Black comedians, but even lesser for female Black comedians. And you also paved the way for, it was a vehicle for Black female comedians as well. And we see how that has changed, you know, and now we see with Tiffany Haddish and so many others doing their thing. Can you talk about how important it was for you to give women an opportunity to get on stage and to hone their craft and to be a part of this comedy, you know, club that a lot of times women weren't welcomed into?
I have to give that shout out to my brother Guy Torry, who told me that way back then. He said, make sure you have a woman, at least one woman on every show, at least one. And you know, certainly we've had multiple before, but at least one. And you know, now more and more women, Black women, are doing stand-up. So now we have a lot more to choose from. Back then, there weren't that many, so you had to at least have one on each show. You had to spread them out, you know, and so that way you get one a week. And there was times when we could book two and afford to book two, and not, you know, run them back to back to back to back, then we would do it. But it was important because they're funny too. They're not funny women. They're just funny comedians who happen to be women.
Right. And
I've learned from a lot of them. And so women just don't get a fair shake in this world, period. No matter what ethnicity, no matter what field, pay gap is still bullshit. And or the quid pro quo. And we ran our room without that. And I told my Terrence Reynolds, who was St. Louis as well, who I taught how to book the room. I told him that. I said, man, ain't no quid pro quo. You know, no, they don't have to sleep with us to get on stage.
Right.
And so many women appreciated that and got a nice spot and got paid. And, you know, it's funny is funny. And you know, it was a no-brainer. It's not something to pop my collar about or toot my horn about. It's just do the right fucking thing.
In a time when so many people did not, and to be someone that kind of went against the grain and did it seems like it shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. One person does the right thing, other people start to see that and say, okay, well, we'll do that too. But it takes one person to do that. and you definitely opened the door and made a way for a lot of people, but definitely allowing women to share the same space and be created, be seen as equals is huge. So it is a big deal. As a woman, I'm saying to you, thank you so much for that, because especially at that time, it was very, very different. Even now, like you said, it's still different for women, but for a Black man to stand up and say that, that's a big deal.
But it's so sad because look at all the look at where it is now for Black women in entertainment behind the scenes. It's an explosion. Yeah. Just think if we would have done that years ago.
Yeah.
How many more great productions we would have had and stories coming from Black women. Mm-hmm. So take it to the comedy game. Look how many more great Black female comedians we would have had if guys weren't on that bullshit. Whereas I gotta sleep with you to get stage time. Right. I get, there's some stories that are told in this where promoters have done Black women comics wrong. Yeah. I mean, shorting them on their money, trying to sleep with them after the show, and had the mentality of, I booked you so I can sleep with you.
Right.
Women having to put the lock on their hotel room doors because the promoter got an extra key and when I come in the middle of the night, and it's like, and how many women have quit because of that, who could have gone on and been great, but they just got fucking tired of the bullshit.
Right.
This we would have an abundantly amount of successful, more Black funny female comedians if they didn't have those hurdles, that quid pro quo to deal with. It's just sad. So yeah. It's just sad that, I ain't go on and on, but it's just sad.
It is, but I'm excited to see this celebration. And I think when people are exposed and they see this, I mean, it's going to birth so many. You never know who's going to see this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new comedians birthed from just watching this journey. So this is going to be huge. I look forward to watching it on Amazon Prime on February 4th, along with you. Since you haven't seen it, I'm assuming you're going to wait to watch it. So thank you so much. Like I said, we look forward to being able to celebrate it and watch it with you. But kudos and enjoy this moment of being able to, reap the benefits of the seeds that you watered. At least I think you planted some. You want to say you watered them. You did an amazing job. Your career is stellar. You've put in the work, and this is your time to be able to be celebrated and enjoy that. So we salute you.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.